Hi, I am Ilara. My sister didn't just call me selfish for refusing to share a hotel room with her dog and kids. She orchestrated a cruel campaign to erase me from our family, expecting me to stay silent. But when I stood my ground and brought undeniable proof, her perfect world shattered, exposing her betrayal in a way she could never outrun. Before we dive in, what time are you listening and where from? Drop a comment below. This story might sound uncomfortably familiar. The group text lit up my phone at 7:12 a.m., a time of day only early birds and guilt trips seem to respect. Serena, hey, can you still ride with Mom this year? Bring Luna's bed too. Oh, and if you don't mind, could you start watching the kids Thursday morning? That was it. No good morning, no question marks, not even a please, just logistics. You're not asking, you're commanding, I thought, her words a familiar slap disguised as a request. I stared at the message while the kettle hissed beside me. Outside, the birds were just beginning their daily argument over the bird feeder, and inside the silence felt louder than usual. Luna, of course, was her golden retriever, technically family, but let's be honest, treated better than I ever was. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I opened the group thread and started scrolling, just to remind myself this wasn't the first time. It was the 10th. 10 times in the last 4 years, I'd been asked, or more truthfully, expected, to help during family vacations, and every single time the same thing. Pack light, watch the kids, and somehow always end up with Luna's leash in one hand and a juice box in the other. You've made me your servant, I realized, each text a link in a chain I'd let bind me. I sipped my coffee, which had gone lukewarm. My kitchen window faced west, so the light always hit the wall behind me first, like a reminder I was still living in the shadows of people who never looked back. Last year was the worst. We'd gone to the Washington coast. Mira, our mother, had booked the hotel, saying it was a treat for the whole family. She'd paid for everyone's room. Everyone except mine. I was told it would be fine. I could just bunk with the boys. Her words, not mine. Ilara, you're single, she said. Like that explained everything. You're used to sleeping alone. It's just a few nights. That few nights turned into me on the floor next to an air mattress that wouldn't hold air, a dog who barked at her own reflection, and 4 kids who thought bedtime was a suggestion. Serena and her husband Wesley had a suite with a view. They needed rest as parents, they said. I needed ibuprofen. You used me, I seethed silently, their comfort built on my sacrifice. The only thing I asked for was a quick stop at a local history museum, something I'd seen on a flyer in the hotel lobby. It wasn't much, just a few local artifacts and exhibits tucked near the bay. They sighed. Mira even whispered to Wesley loud enough for me to hear. She always has to make it about her. We went. I thought I'd been heard, but after 15 minutes, Serena's youngest screamed that he was bored, and Wesley said he had a headache, and just like that, we left. My sister didn't even try to hide her eye roll. You mocked my dreams, I thought, her dismissal a wound that lingered. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just walked behind them like the unpaid help I clearly was. Back in the present, I read the new text again. Luna's bed. The kids ride with Mom. The old anger in my chest didn't rage. It simmered. I set my mug down and typed, I'm not sharing a room with the dog or the kids this time. I'll drive myself. Book my own room. I need peace. Hit send. Within minutes, my phone buzzed again. Voice note from Serena. I hesitated, then hit play. You're so selfish sometimes, Ilara. I'm drowning, and all you care about is some hotel room. Selfish? That word always hits different when it comes from someone who's never said thank you. You're drowning because you pushed me under, I thought, her accusation a spark to my defiance. Before I could even think of how to respond, Mira chimed in with a follow-up message. You're young, single, you've always been the helper. It's just one trip. Just one trip like it was just one task. Just one more time. Just one more way to bend. You've chained me to your convenience, I realized, her words a mother's betrayal. I deleted the group chat. I didn't want to hear it anymore. Not the guilt, not the entitlement, not the exhausted justification. I stood up, walked to the drawer near the sink, and opened it. At the back, wrapped in a strip of old cloth, was a wooden spoon, worn, darkened with time, slightly curved at the handle. It used to belong to my grandmother. She was the only one who saw me, not as an extension of someone else's life, but as my own person. When I was 12, she told me something I never forgot. Love means helping, but help only counts when it's not expected. I held the spoon for a moment, then set it gently back. You saw my worth, I thought, her memory a beacon in my fight. The room was still. My phone screen was black now, resting face down. Mom! I walked over to my laptop and opened it. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard just a second before I typed, "Hotels near Crescent Cove." There was one quiet ocean view, no pool, no kids club. Perfect. One room left. I stared at the screen for a moment longer than necessary, then I clicked, "Book now." The next morning, I woke up early before the sun had fully pulled itself over the cedars and let the silence soak in. My tiny rental had creaky floors and mismatched mugs, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like mine. Coffee first, always coffee. I carried the chipped green mug over to the window, sipping slowly as birds scratched at the feeder outside. I opened Instagram more out of habit than interest, my thumb doing the work while my mind wandered. Then I saw it. Serena's post. Fresh, less than an hour old. Can't wait for our beach vacation. Mom, Wesley, the boys, Luna, and me. Every name was tagged. Mom, her husband, the kids, even the dog. But not me. You erased me again, I whispered. Her post a public knife to my heart. I stared at the glowing screen like it might correct itself. Maybe it was a glitch, maybe she forgot. But no, it was deliberate, because that's how it always went. I was there but not visible, present but never included. The comments were already pouring in. Sounds amazing. What a lucky family. Love how close you all are. And then one that made my stomach tighten. Your sister is so good with the boys, she must be a godsend. You're using my name to shine, I thought, her hypocrisy a bitter pill. I didn't react, didn't hit the laugh emoji or type a sarcastic, "She's not wrong, just not right either." Instead, I just watched my own erasure play out in real time, a digital vanishing act perfected over years. In every photo growing up, I was either blurry in the corner or holding the camera. We needed someone to take the picture, Mom used to say. I used to believe that. Now I knew better. By lunch, I'd shaken most of the sting off. I busied myself around the house, wiped the counters, did a load of towels, reorganized the spice rack, normal things, mundane things, until my phone pinged again. A text from Serena. Short and familiar. Also, can you bring the old sleeping bag for Luna? The boys might need extra space, too. No greeting, no thanks, just another assignment. You're still demanding, I thought, her text a reminder of her entitlement. I walked to the hall closet without thinking. The sleeping bag sat where I'd left it, worn, gray, with a zipper that stuck halfway down. It used to be mine. Years ago, I took it on school camping trips, birthday sleepovers, even university orientation. Back then, it smelled like detergent and sunscreen. Now, it smelled like dog hair and mildew. I held it in my hands and just stood there. That sleeping bag was where I'd spent last summer's vacation. On the floor of a musty motel room, sand stuck in my socks, Luna circling my feet like I was the family intern. You made me invisible, I realized, the bag a symbol of my erasure. I pressed the bag against my chest and muttered to the quiet air. So now, I'm the girl who carries the dog and disappears online. That was it. That was the whole damn pattern. Not just the room, or the ride, or the sleeping bag. It was the unspoken expectation that I'd serve quietly, that I'd keep things moving, that I'd smile through it all and vanish. I sat down at the edge of my bed, the sleeping bag still in my lap, and let my mind go back to a memory I rarely pulled out anymore. It was a Christmas photo, maybe 2006. Everyone posed in front of the fireplace, Serena holding the youngest, Mom in blue lipstick, Dad with his hand on her shoulder. I remembered because I took it. I remembered because when it was printed and framed, the caption read, "All of us, Christmas 2006. I wasn't in the picture. I wasn't us. You never saw me, I whispered, the memory a wound that fueled my resolve. I set the sleeping bag aside like it was made of thorns, pulled out my phone, and typed back, I'm driving separately. I've booked my own room. I won't be in charge of the kids or Luna. Please plan accordingly. I stared at the message for a few seconds, then I hit send. It showed read within minutes, but no reply came, not a single word. I went back to wiping counters. I took the trash out. I rearranged some books. Still nothing until my phone rang. Mira. I let it buzz until it stopped. Then a text appeared from Serena. 2 words. You've changed. Good? I thought. Her words a badge of my defiance. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because maybe I had changed. Maybe I have, but maybe I was never supposed to stay the same. Thursday came with a pale sun cutting through the kitchen window. I'd barely slept. My brain had played reruns of Serena's voice all night, but despite the tiredness, I woke with purpose. I wasn't going to the beach with them, not the way they expected. Still, I'd picked up a little gift bag for my nephews, a pair of matching dolphin print hats they'd once begged for at the farmer's market, a peace offering. Maybe for them, maybe for me. By 10:00 a.m, I pulled into my parent gravel driveway. The stones popped under my tires like they always had. Mom's wind chimes clinked gently by the porch, same as every summer. You can't guilt me anymore, I thought, their familiarity no longer a trap. I didn't plan to stay, just hand off the bag and leave. I parked by the side roses and walked around to the trunk. As I lifted the lid, my heart stuttered. My suitcase was gone. The gift bag still sat neatly to the side, but the large black roller bag I'd packed for my trip, my solo escape, was missing. I turned slowly toward the house. Mira's SUV sat idling near the garage. Its hatchback was wide open, and there it was, my suitcase, already tucked in, wedged between coolers and a box labeled snacks. You stole my freedom, I seethed, their audacity a brazen betrayal. I walked straight up to it. Serena's voice floated from behind me. We figured you'd ride with Mom. Saves gas and we already got the room booked. Same setup as last year. I kept walking. Mira appeared on the other side of the car, casually adjusting the seatbelt over a car seat. I thought it made the most sense, she said. You've always come with us, and I figured we'd keep everyone together. You don't need to drive all that way alone. I crouched down, unzipped the front pouch of the suitcase. My notebook was still inside. It was definitely mine. I didn't answer. And we're not fitting Luna and the boys in with Mom, Serena added. Obviously. Of course, the dog and the children needed space, and of course, I was expected to make room for all of them. You assume I'm yours to control, I thought, their presumption a spark to my rebellion. I stood up, grabbed the suitcase handle, and yanked it out. The plastic wheels scraped the bumper. No one said a word as I turned and walked it back to my car. Not even a protest. Back behind the wheel, I clicked the trunk closed, then slid into the driver's seat. I didn't cry, didn't scream, but I did feel something splinter quietly behind my ribs. I sat there for a few minutes, watching a bee circle the rearview mirror. Then the voicemail alert buzzed from Serena. I tapped play and set the phone on speaker. Her voice came through calm, almost chipper, but she was clearly mid-conversation, probably talking to Mira or Wesley. Honestly, she owes us. She lived rent-free forever. She should be grateful to still be invited. You're lying to justify your greed, I thought, her words a venomous lie. The bee landed on the glass. I reached for the volume button, lowered it, raised it again. She should be grateful. I turned the engine on, not sure where I was going yet. My fingers curled around the steering wheel. The buzzing sound outside faded into the hum of the car. The audio kept playing, muffled now, and in my mind I was back in that basement. My 20s, trying to finish school while working shifts at the co-op, coming home to a kitchen that wasn't mine, but where I still cooked meals for the boys because Serena had a thing and couldn't get dinner on. Cleaning the guest bathroom, even though it was technically my bathroom because guests shouldn't see the house in a mess. Always with the reminder, You're staying here for free, just help where you can. What they didn't say, what they never admitted, was that I had offered rent multiple times. Mom refused every time. Save your money, sweetie, that's what family does. I'd believed her. Apparently, Serena hadn't. You used my trust against me, I realized, their manipulation a wound that hardened my resolve. I pulled over outside a closed bakery and stared at the brick building for a while. Then I opened my email. I forwarded the voicemail to myself and labeled the subject line, Evidence, Pattern of Use. My finger hovered over the send button longer than I expected. Then I clicked it. This wasn't about one voicemail. This was about truth. This was about patterns, and for once, I wasn't deleting what hurt me. I was documenting it. Back at the house later that evening, the gift bag still sat by the front door, untouched. I didn't bother bringing it back in. Inside, I unzipped my suitcase. Not because I'd changed my mind, not because I was staying, but because I was starting over. I repacked slowly, selectively. I folded my favorite sweater, swapped out the linen skirt I didn't even like, added a slim black notebook and 2 pens. As I zipped the case shut, I whispered, not bitterly, not loudly, just to myself. They want a helper. I'm bringing a mirror. I'm done being your shadow, I vowed, the suitcase a symbol of my liberation. Wednesday morning started with drizzle tapping against the window panes, soft and rhythmic. I was standing at the kitchen counter, still in my robe, cradling a cup of black coffee, when the notification pinged on my phone. An email, subject line, reservation confirmation, Crescent Cove Inn. I blinked. I hadn't finished booking yet. I'd chosen a room but never completed payment. I opened it. There it was, confirmation for the Ocean View family suite, 2 queen beds, adjoining crib, pet-friendly, check-in tomorrow afternoon. But the billing information, it wasn't under my name, it was Serena's. You're forcing me into your plan, I thought, her audacity a blatant power grab. I stared at the screen a moment, then dialed the hotel. Crescent Cove Inn? This is Tara, how can I help you? Hi, yes, I said, slowly. I got a reservation email, but I didn't finish booking anything. Can you check who made it? There was a pause, then the sound of clacking keys. Sure. Let's see. Yes, you're confirmed for the family suite. The reservation was finalized by a Serena Varnell. She mentioned you're her sister and aunt to the children, said you'd be arriving early to get things set up. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. That's not what I booked. I was trying to reserve a solo room. Another pause. I'm sorry, ma'am, but this reservation is under her name. You're listed as the primary guest, but all changes would have to go through her now. You've trapped me again, I thought. Her control a suffocating net. I thanked her calmly, hung up. Calmly. Then I dressed, grabbed my keys, and headed straight to the Tidewater Cafe, the brunch spot Mom and Serena loved. It was just after 11:00 dot. They'd be there, and they were already seated by the window with their mimosas and smug faces. Serena noticed me first. Oh, you came after all. I didn't sit. I placed my phone on the table, screen facing them. The hotel email was open, and her name glared from the header like a flashing red light. You booked the room with your kids for me? She blinked innocently. Well, you didn't confirm anything. I figured you'd forgotten. I was helping. Helping, I repeated, almost amused, by signing me up to be the nanny again? Serena shrugged. We just assumed you'd come around. It's what you do. You're lying to my face, I thought, her innocence a calculated facade. Mira chimed in gently, as if this were all some sweet misunderstanding. Honey, we thought this way you'd feel included. It's just easier to keep the family together. Together? I laughed once, dry and short. You didn't even ask me. Serena's tone shifted, cool and clipped. You're overreacting. This is just how things work in families. In your version of family, maybe. You've never known family, I accused silently, their unity a sham built on my back. I turned without another word, walked past the hostess and out the door into the light rain. Back in my car, hands on the steering wheel, I let the silence settle. Then another email arrived. Subject line, centering your energy. Coastal self-healing retreat from Mira. Attached was a flyer. Images of women meditating on a cliffside. Phrases like, "Release what no longer serves you and find your true frequency." Underneath a note, "Maybe this can help you find your balance again. Love, Mom." My fingers clenched around the phone. Balance. 18 years ago I was 13, curled on the living room floor after Serena embarrassed me in front of her high school friends, called me dead weight for tagging along to a mall trip. I was crying, not loudly, just those quiet, breathless sobs that come when you've run out of strength. Mira walked in, handed me a blank journal, and said flatly, "Write your feelings down. We're not here to babysit your emotions." She'd left the room before I could respond. Now she was still trying to fix me, just with better fonts and coastal imagery. "You've never cared for me," I thought. Her retreat a dismissal dressed in love. It wasn't that they didn't see me, it's that they didn't want to. They wanted the version of me who agreed, apologized, disappeared into helpfulness. But I was done fitting their prescriptions. I opened my contacts and found Marissa, an old college friend who practiced family law in Seattle. Now, we hadn't spoken in 8 months, but I knew she'd still have the same number. I forwarded her every email, the hotel booking confirmation, the retreat suggestion, screenshots of Serena's text chain asking for childcare, even the voicemail from the day before. Subject line, "Boundary overdue." Need your eyes. I wasn't filing anything yet, but I needed a record. I needed to stop pretending this was just miscommunication or cultural differences in family dynamics. This was manipulation, dressed in familiarity. I'm building my case, I thought, her expertise a shield for my truth. The rain came down heavier. I sat for a while watching it beat on the windshield. My phone buzzed again. Serena. I stared at the screen for 6 long seconds, then answered. "You're not seriously mad about this, right?" she said right away. "It's just a vacation." "No," I replied, "it's not just anything." "Elara," she said, exasperated. "Mom's worried about you." "If either of you ever tries to manage my vacation again," I said quietly, "you'll be managing a lawsuit next time." "You've lost your grip," I declared, my voice a quiet thunder of resolve. I ended the call before she could say anything else, and for the first time the silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt clean. That sentence echoed in my mind as the sun sank low behind the cedars. I was back home, porch light flickering on automatically, casting a soft glow across the weathered boards beneath my bare feet. A chipped mug of tea sat cooling on the armrest beside me, peppermint, and something old bitter. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way they expected. I was something else entirely. I picked up my phone, mostly out of habit, and tapped open Instagram. A fresh post from Serena popped up at the top. "Grateful for my rock star family. Wesley, the boys, Mom, Luna, always my support system." A beach photo, sand, smiles, wind-tousled hair. Everyone was tagged except me. "You're still erasing me," I thought. Her post a final stab at my heart. I stared at it longer than I should have. The heat rising in my chest, not from jealousy, but from the kind of sadness that doesn't yell. It just settles in like fog that won't lift. Even when I wasn't there, I was invisible. I scrolled through my camera roll, half looking for something to distract myself, and landed on a photo from 4 summers ago. Another beach trip. I remembered that weekend how I'd woken up early to pack sandwiches, organize towels, and coordinate check-in for the Airbnb. In the picture, I wasn't smiling in the foreground. I was behind the cooler, behind the dog, behind everyone. No caption had ever mentioned me. "You made me a ghost," I whispered, the photo a mirror to my pain. I opened the comment box beneath Serena's post, typed, "You forgot someone." Then I deleted it, because of course, she didn't forget, she chose not to see me. Back inside, I kicked off my sandals and set my phone on the kitchen counter. The house was still, save for the hum of the fridge and the creak of settling floorboards. I was just about to pour the rest of my tea down the sink when I noticed the envelope, plain white, from the credit union. I opened it, lazily at first, then with a jolt of dread as I read the words payment delinquency notice. It was a loan, Serena's car, the one I'd co-signed for 8 months 3 years ago. My stomach turned. My credit score was officially affected. You've damaged my future, I thought. Her negligence a betrayal that cut deep. I sat down hard on the bar stool. I dialed without thinking. She picked up after 2 rings. Hey, Ilara, everything okay? You said you'd take me off that loan. After 8 months, there was a beat of silence on her end, then that familiar tone, sweet with a side of guilt. Ilara, come on, it's family. I thought we were helping each other. No, I said flatly, you were helping yourself again. You know, I've got a lot going on. Kids, work. You always have a lot going on, Serena, and somehow I'm always the backup plan. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. She just said, I didn't know it was affecting you. You never cared to know, I thought, her indifference a final straw. I hung up. And this time, I didn't feel bad about it. The memories came without asking. Sitting in Mom's living room 3 winters ago, Serena sniffling on the couch, her boys tearing around in superhero pajamas. Mira looking at me with that tone, the one that said, if you don't step up, you're cruel. You're the only one who can help her right now. You're good with money, she'd said, like logic was a leash I'd willingly wear. I'd caved, signed the form, didn't even ask for a thank you, because I thought that's what good daughters did. I moved to the living room floor, needing something cold and grounded. The hardwood pressed against my back as I lay there breathing in the quiet. And just like that, I heard it clicking nails against tile. Luna not actually here, of course, but the memory of her barking in my apartment last winter while Serena took a 3-week ski trip to Whistler. She hadn't asked, just texted. Hope you don't mind keeping Luna, you're a lifesaver. I'd bought dog food out of pocket, still had the receipt. You exploited my kindness, I realized. Her neglect a wound that fueled my fight. I sat up slowly, wiped my cheeks with the sleeve of my sweatshirt, and opened my laptop. Credit reports, screenshots, documents. One by one, I saved them all into a folder labeled Doormat No More. Then I opened my email. New message to Mira Varnell, Serenelle Varnell. Subject, No More. I hovered over the send button. It wasn't rage that guided my fingers. It was truth. It wasn't just the name they forgot, it was the person who carried it. That Monday afternoon, I was folding laundry on the living room couch when the group text pinged. I almost ignored it. Another neighborhood update, I thought, but then I saw the name. Hi, Ilara, it started. Just confirming you're still helping set up for the community picnic, right? Serena said you'd be in charge of the kids' booth again. I blinked at the screen, rereading the message like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something else, something that didn't suggest I'd been volunteered again without a whisper of consent. You're still using me, I thought, her assumption a bold overstep. I hadn't agreed to anything. I scrolled up through the thread. Sure enough, my name had been tossed in, wedged right under Serena's cheery message. Ilara's always great with the kids. Not asked, assigned. It wasn't even a surprise anymore, just expected. I stood up, walked slowly to the kitchen and leaned on the counter, phone still in hand. My thumb hovered over the reply button. They do it everywhere, I whispered, even in spaces they don't own. I didn't send a response, not yet. Instead, I found myself drifting toward the hallway closet. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe the box of picnic decorations I'd packed away last year, something to make the intrusion feel justified. What I found was something else entirely. A beat-up cardboard box sat in the back, labeled in faded Sharpie, Vacation Archive. A curiosity pried it open. Inside were random souvenirs, wrinkled brochures, a few sand-covered Ziplocs of shells from the coast. And then I saw it. A printed itinerary stapled neatly. The kind Serena always emailed everyone and printed just in case. I unfolded the paper and scanned the list. Ilara, 6:30 a.m. Wake the kids. 7 a.m. Prep breakfast. 9 a.m. Watch Luna while Serena gets nails done. 11:30 i.e. Ming. Lunch cleanup. You planned my life without me, I thought. The itinerary a secret contract of my servitude. I stared at the page for a long time, trying to remember when I'd seen this before. I hadn't, not once. This had been passed around behind my back, typed, printed, distributed. It was never discussed because they never thought I'd need to agree. I folded the paper in half with care, not out of respect, but out of restraint. Then I tucked it under my arm and walked back into the living room. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from Mira, a new thread titled Mom's Birthday Slideshow. Serena had started compiling a collage of favorite family memories. 40 photos. I clicked through them. There was Wesley and the boys on a Ferris wheel, Mira and Luna at the beach, Serena mid-loft on a deck chair, sun haloing her like something out of a catalog. I found myself in exactly 2 pictures, one half-cropped carrying a stack of pool towels, another barely visible behind a folding chair holding a trash bag. That was my legacy. Supporting character. Soft blur. You've written me out, I realized. The photos a gallery of my erasure. I dropped the phone on the table and sank into the couch. I was always the shadow, I murmured. But they built the light around me. That hurt more than I expected. But sometimes grief does that. Shows up late, dressed in silence, settling in for a long stay. 15 minutes later, I stood up, walked to my laptop, and opened a new message to the community picnic coordinator subject. Clarification. I wrote, I did not agree to run the kids' booth. Please remove my name from all materials moving forward. Simple, clean. Then, for the first time in years, I opened Instagram, not to scroll, but to speak. I typed, just because someone is quiet doesn't mean they're here to be used. I didn't add hashtags, didn't tag anyone. I just hit post. I'm speaking my truth, I thought. The post a quiet roar of defiance. It spread faster than I thought it would. Private messages trickled in. Some from neighbors, some from old college friends. I've been there too. This hit me hard. Thank you for saying it. Not loud, but in that night, I poured myself a glass of water and pulled the dining room chair to the table where the old vacation folder now sat open. I flipped through forms, text threads, calendar printouts, and every screenshot I'd gathered since spring. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop. I titled it Undeniable. I whispered it once to myself, then began scanning the pages one by one. If they needed receipts, I'd print the whole damn archive. The sun hadn't fully burned through the coastal fog when I pulled into the gravel driveway of the Crescent Cove Inn. It was 7 hours before the others were scheduled to arrive. I had timed it that way, early enough to breathe without shadows trailing me. Inside the modest lobby, the clerk glanced up, offered a friendly good morning. I returned a faint nod and stepped to the counter. I have a reservation under Ilera Varnell, I said. Then I set both hands flat on the counter, firm but not aggressive. And I'd like to request something specific. The young man blinked. Of course, ma'am. What do you need? I need my room information kept completely private. No one else is to be told my room number. No key copies, no letting anyone check in on my behalf. No exceptions. He straightened. Understood. I exhaled. Thank you. I'm taking back my space, I thought. The request a declaration of my autonomy. Minutes later, I stepped into the room they'd assigned me, quiet, cool, facing the dunes. I dropped my bag onto the bench and just stood still. For the first time in years, I'd gotten exactly what I asked for. Then I saw it on the nightstand by the bed, a small gray napkin folded into the shape of a flower, a forget-me-not. My chest tightened. Grandma used to fold napkins like that when I was a girl, back when we'd set the table together in her old cottage kitchen. Small touches matter, she'd always say. You're still with me, I thought. Her legacy a quiet strength in my heart, and in that moment, far from anyone's interference, I smiled. Not the performative kind I wore around my family, but one that came from somewhere steadier, somewhere mine. By 7:30 that evening, I was showered, dressed in a loose cardigan and jeans, and ready to show up for the first family dinner, not for them, but for myself. The restaurant was one of those upscale coastal places that made sea foam look expensive. Serena was already there, waving too hard, her boys squirming in their seats. Mira smiled like she'd practiced it in the mirror. As I approached, I noticed the layout. 4 chairs at one end, adult-sized linen napkins, wine glasses, 5 chairs at the other, shorter crayons and juice boxes already waiting. In between, one empty seat wedged between the high chair and Luna's dog bed, which someone had shamelessly brought into the dining room. Serena gestured toward it. "We saved you a spot, Ilara. Right where you usually sit." "You're trying to cage me," I thought, her gesture a deliberate insult. I paused, nodded, and walked right past it. "Actually," I said, voice light as air, "I think I'll sit at the far end tonight." And I did. I pulled out the seat furthest from the juice boxes and the paw prints and settled in as if I owned it. Serena stiffened. Mira's smile twitched. "It's not about rebellion," I thought. "It's about position. I'm done being the extra chair. I'm claiming my place," I declared silently, my choice a quiet revolution. Dinner went on. Small talk, overcompensated laughs, more wine than the conversation required. Then came dessert. Mira leaned toward me, her voice low but sharp enough to slice pie crust. "Don't ruin this for your sister. Not everything's about proving a point." I didn't flinch. I looked her in the eye and said, "Then maybe stop giving me one to prove." "You've lost your hold," I thought, my words a challenge she couldn't ignore. The air at our end of the table grew still. Wesley glanced up from his plate, spoon hovering mid-air, but true to form, he said nothing. I stayed until the check came. Then I stood, thanked the waiter, and left without saying goodnight. Later, just after 11, I stepped out of my room for a walk. The air was thick with salt and something heavier, something old. I barely made it down the hall before Serena emerged from the shadows, arms crossed. "You think you're better than us now?" she snapped. "You think you're some kind of victim?" Her voice was low, angry, but not desperate. No, this was controlled rage, strategic. "You've always been ungrateful," she hissed. "Everything you've had came from this family." I kept my hands loose at my sides. "That's funny," I said, calm as still water, "because I've got all the receipts that say otherwise." "You can't silence me anymore," I declared, my voice a quiet storm of truth, and I walked past her, didn't wait for a comeback, didn't need one. The next morning, as the sun broke through the last of the marine layer, I sat at the desk in my room sipping strong coffee. I pulled up the HOA's private member email list, the one Mira used to share newsletters and fundraising photos, and I attached a file. Family 2022 deposit confirmation. It was a screenshot from my bank. Payment for $4,500, 0 cents, 2 rental homes, 8 nights. Then I hit send. You'll face your lies, I thought. The email a public unveiling of their deceit. 10 minutes later, a reply came. "This contradicts what your mother told us. Thank you for clarifying." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That evening at dinner, the atmosphere had changed. Serena's wine glass trembled slightly as she lifted it. Mira smiled too wide, too fast, like she was hosting an event that had slipped from her fingers. Wesley barely looked up from his grilled salmon. No one made eye contact with me. No one said my name. And yet it rang in every silence. The house may still stand, but the foundation just cracked. By 7:30 the next morning, the coastal fog had rolled back in, draping everything in a heavy silence. I stood barefoot on the cold tile floor of my hotel room, sipping the last inch of lukewarm coffee when the knock came. It started soft, tentative, almost polite, then again firmer. "Elara, I know you're in there," Serena's voice called through the door. "I need to talk to you." I stayed still. A pause, then the rattle of the doorknob. She actually tried it. The deadbolt clicked under her hand, a quiet defiance. "You still think you own me," I thought, her intrusion a final act of desperation. Of course she assumed she still had a key or access or say. I backed away from the door and sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slow, centered. She pounded once more, let out a sigh loud enough for the whole hallway to hear, and then I heard her footsteps retreat. I stayed there for 15 more minutes. By the time I arrived downstairs for breakfast, the rest of the family was already seated at the long-windowed table, a view of the waves crashing in the distance. No one looked up when I walked in. I pulled my chair slowly, deliberately sat opposite Mira, with Serena directly to my left. Her face was still flushed, her smile forced. We were halfway through coffee and scrambled eggs when Serena set her fork down with a loud clink. "Why are you doing this, Ilara?" I turned my head slowly. "Doing what?" "This whole thing, the emails, the documents." Her voice cracked. "You're trying to embarrass me. You're turning people against us." I reached into my tote bag and laid down a neat stack of papers in front of her. Receipts from vacation rental deposits in my name. Screenshots of emails asking me, never thanking me, for childcare, errands, chores. Typed itineraries where I had been assigned roles no one consulted me about. "You've exploited me for years," I accused. The paper's a damning archive of her greed. Mira leaned forward. "Ilara, you're blowing things out of proportion. This was just family helping each other. You know how these trips go. Someone always has to take the lead." "I didn't raise my voice. You blew it out the second you expected me to be silent forever." "Your control ends now," I declared, my words a seismic shift in the room. The table froze. Then something I never expected. Wesley, quiet, passive, Serena's husband, cleared his throat and looked at me. "She told me you volunteered," he said, voice low. "She said you offered. I didn't know you paid for all that." He turned slowly to his wife. "If I'd known—" Serena's jaw clenched. "That's not fair." "You've been exposed," I thought, his words a crack in her empire. But the crack had formed. And I wasn't patching it this time. I gathered my things calmly, folding each paper back into my bag. As I stood, I pulled out a small item and laid it on the table. A folded gray napkin soft from age. "Grandma left me this when she passed," I said quietly. "She told me, you decide the pattern." I smoothed it gently with my fingers, then walked away, past the ocean view windows, past the guilt that no longer clung to my coat like morning mist. "I'm free of your chains," I thought, the napkin a symbol of my reclaimed voice. Checkout was quiet. The clerk at the front desk handed me a small envelope as I slid my key card across the counter. "This came in for you overnight," she said. "Your room was upgraded last night. Anonymous guest. They said you'd earned some peace." I opened the note. No name, just one line. Let the silence speak for itself. I turned toward the parking lot, and as I did, I caught sight of Wesley. He stood near his car, arms crossed. He met my gaze for a moment, nodded once, then turned back toward his sons who were climbing into the back seat. "You see me now," I thought, his nod a quiet acknowledgement of my truth. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I simply acknowledged it for what it was. Not an apology, but an echo. Later, as I wheeled my suitcase toward my own car, the sun finally broke through the mist. I paused at the edge of the lot, letting the light wash across my face. I felt no anger, no need to gloat, only clarity. Sometimes the door you lock isn't to keep them out, but to keep yourself in. A month had passed since the hotel lobby, the HOA email, and the kind of silence that didn't sting anymore. My house in Tacoma hadn't changed much. Same creaky porch, same chipped tea mug waiting near the sink. But inside me, something subtle had shifted. The air felt lighter. It was early, barely past 7. I opened the back door and stepped into the yard barefoot. Dew coated the stones leading into the garden, my grandmother's garden. Her lavender still pushed up from the soil, stubborn and wild, just the way she liked it. I wrapped my arms around myself, not from cold, but from stillness. My phone rang inside the kitchen. I walked back in, wiped my hands on a towel, and checked the screen. Dad. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. Just nods across tables, the occasional weather-forward text. This time I picked up. "Hi, Dad." His voice came slow, careful. "Your mom's?" "Well, she's upset. Your sister's not speaking to anyone. I guess the dust's still settling. I didn't respond right away, just let the silence breathe." But he continued. "I wanted to say, you did something I never had the guts to do." "You see my strength," I thought, his words a rare validation from a silent father. That stopped me. I leaned against the counter, one foot curled beneath the other. I didn't do it to punish anyone. I did it because I couldn't breathe. He was quiet for a long time. I thought he'd hung up, but he was still there, breathing, listening, and for once that was enough. After we hung up, I changed into an old hoodie and went outside again, carrying a small wooden box wrapped in fabric. I walked toward the bench at the edge of the garden, hand-carved by my grandmother when I was 15. I used to sit there while she told me stories about the world as it was, not as others pretended it to be. Sitting down now, I opened the box in my lap. Inside were letters, dozens of them, written in my handwriting, some messy, some careful. On birthdays, I'd been forgotten. Holidays, I'd been erased. Occasions, where I was everything but seen. I pulled out one, folded in a napkin, the one I wrote the night I slept on the floor beside Luna while Serena and Wesley snored in comfort above me. I held it to the sunlight, read the final line to myself. You deserved more than that, and you finally gave it to yourself. I set it in a small clay bowl beside me and lit the match. The paper curled slowly, the ink twisting in the flames. I didn't cry, just watched it turn into something weightless. I'm letting go of your pain, I thought, the fire a cleansing of their burdens. Later that morning, I went to the corner of the garden and began digging a small trench. The soil was soft this year. Washington had been kind. I planted sage, thyme, and mint. This spring, the garden was just for me. As I wiped the sweat from my brow, my phone buzzed, a text from Wesley. The boys still talk about your shells. Thank you for being kind, even when you had every reason not to be. I stared at the screen a while before typing back. They were never the problem. They still have a chance to grow up with balance. I meant it. As I stood to stretch, something small fluttered from beneath the garden bench. I bent down, brushing away a fallen leaf. It was a gray napkin folded into a tiny flower. I hadn't placed it there. Or maybe she had. I held it gently between my fingers, the fabric worn soft like memory. She would have been proud, I whispered. And somehow in that moment, I believed it. I'm living for me now, I thought, the napkin a quiet testament to my journey. The sun had risen now, warming the lavender stalks in the curve of the bench. I sat back down and let the quiet settle over me. Not the silence of being erased, the silence of being finally, fully mine. If you've made it this far, if you've sat through the way families can smile while cutting you down, if you've ever said yes when your whole soul wanted to say no, then maybe this part is for you. Peace isn't always found in forgiveness. Sometimes it's found in refusal. Refusal to be erased. Refusal to be used. Refusal to let someone else define your role. So, if you're reading this or watching this, or just quietly nodding to yourself in the dark, then let me ask you what I once had to ask myself. At what point do you stop being the helper and start being the person you needed? The last thing I folded that day wasn't a napkin. It was my silence. I am Ilara, and I am enough, I whispered, my heart scarred but whole, a warrior who found peace in her own truth.